guys have to believe in what they're doing. But once you get to that point, our goal is to have these guys fail in 50% of their swings. And it's really hard to get them to buy into that. Originally, we started implementing it. But now the adjustment process has actually become the win rather than, hey, I felt really good and I hit, 10 barrels and 10 BP swings.
Arteaga drives one to center. Miller hustling over. Diving catch by Ian Miller. A great catch.
3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the 9-Hole Podcast. This is your host, Ian Miller. Today, I am joined by somebody who I've had a personal relationship with, somebody that I've played in front of, right? Somebody that I've looked up to, and somebody that is consistently and currently continuing to make a splash in the baseball world. Today, I am joined by Jon Shehan, the head coach of the Millersville Marauders baseball team, current and consistent top 10 program in Division II baseball. Coach, how you doing? What's going on, man?
Doing really well. Thanks, Ian, for having me on. This is just a pleasure. I'm humbled to be here. You've had some amazing guests the past few months and years now, right? So it's really something I've been looking forward to for the past few weeks.
I love that. I love that, man. The honor's all mine. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you having, carving out maybe an hour or so of your time on a Tuesday morning to talk about the grind, talk about, the struggles of getting to where you're at, talking about the success that you and your team, your boys are pumping out now, where you're at, where you came from, man. Maybe leave off with some advice to the next generation, some stuff behind the scenes, man. Does that all sound, is that cool with you, man? I'd love to get into it.
Fantastic. Let's jump in.
Let's go. So right now, right off the start, you guys are just rolling. I'm gonna knock on wood. You guys are absolutely doing your job. You're killing it. 21-5 right now. I'm not sure if the polls have updated, but going into this week, you guys were sitting top 10 in the country, and you get 21. It's absolutely incredible, man. What can you speak to the current level of success you're having? What is the idea behind it? What are the things that are going on behind the scenes, and how are you guys able to just continue to pump out win after win?
Sure. I think, with the current season, we're a pretty balanced club. We've got a veteran pitching staff. And going into the year, I actually thought we might have to piggyback our weekends, which was like, okay, we've got a lot of depth on the mound. How do we keep guys, consistent each weekend? So we've had a couple of injuries that have sidelined that. But our number one right now is actually pitching game 3. We just haven't really had a chance to flip it around. But we really have 2 ones. Carson Kalana's back. He was All-American last year. He's kind of picked up right where he left off. And then Alex Miket's 2 years off of Tommy John surgery and has just returned to his pre-Tommy John form where we were pretty certain he was going to be a draft guy. And that got a little bit derailed. And, it took about 2 years here to get him back to full strength. But he has been electric for our staff and for our team. But the lineup's dynamic. We've played great defense. Up until last week, we had a couple of rough ball games. But the lineup's super dynamic. We've got some speed and we've got some power and a couple guys in between. So that's been the secret sauce so far.
That's fantastic, man. I have some stats obviously here written down. So currently in 2024, right, you were 21-5, 11-1 in conference as a team. The lineup, everybody's hitting 332, right, with 162 strikeouts versus 124 walks. But that's also paired with 24 hit by pitches, man. So you are almost damn near 1-1 in that category. So you guys are hitting, you're controlling the zone, you're seeing the baseball. 431 on base percentage through these 26 games and a 477 slug. You pair that with 80 stolen bases in 98 attempts already in 26 games. And it's like, how are you able to pump out like 5-tool athletes, being able to hit the ball out of the ballpark, being able to control the zone, swing at good pitches, and do damage on the bases, man? Is that something that you implement in your preparation, in practice as you're going? Like, can you teach these boys that?
Absolutely. I mean, being a base running guy yourself, right? I mean, you impressed me years ago. That was one of the reasons why we'll get into it why we recruited you. But I think first and foremost, building a dynamic offense is one way to be consistent. And when you're playing in the Northeast, you're going to have good fields, bad fields, wind blowing in. You're going to have ballparks that are literally, 310 feet down the line. And then you're going to play in a turf soccer field like we did at Bloomsburg a couple weeks ago, where it's like 450 to center. So I think if you want to build consistent winners, you got to have different ways of beating people every week. So it starts with recruiting there. But from a practice aspect, yeah, I mean, we have a tool we use for reflection post game, and we take that very seriously. Our guys are going through each of their at bats and looking at pitch location, and what we've realized is reflection is actually just as important, maybe even more important than actual practice of decision making and BP. And it's really hard to simulate that, in game at bat, obviously for college coaches specifically playing on the weekends and not wanting to throw your arms midweek. And so that's been a big piece to what we're doing is that post game reflection and trying to help our players learn how to make good decisions in practice. If you're looking at the practice side of it, it really does come down to swinging at good pitches and trying to build in some game like practice, even though it is a challenge this time of year. I think that's been a key to our success, and the bat to ball skills are somewhat overlooked. So I'm really happy that you picked that out of the stat line there. I've been really happy with how our guys are going about their bats this year and just combining that, like you said, limiting punch outs, but also swinging at good pitches and driving balls too. 'Cause, I mean, it's a fine line there, right? But
For sure.
I'll plug our base running coach, Bobby Dorda. He was at Wofford the last 2 years. He was actually a 6-year player with our program with COVID. Went down to Wofford, learned his base running skills from Todd Enderdonato, who's now at Boston College. And if you look at what Todd's done from a base running aspect through the last 10 years at Wofford, Bobby just kind of picked up his a lot of his philosophies and plugged them in here, and they've worked really, really well with a bunch of guys that can run. So
I love that. Yeah, you pair fantastic coaching, fantastic leadership with, players that are hungry, obviously have ability, but are willing to put in the work. It's astronomical what you can do, what you can accomplish as well. 3.75 team ERA, 197 innings pitched, 237 Ks, and 98 walks. So your boys are throwing strikes, they're commanding the zone, and you're reciprocating that. On the flip side, you guys are doing damage at the plate. You guys are putting a whole bunch of pressure on the defense, winning games, being dominant. Challenge. Obviously, you guys are playing at a championship caliber level. You guys are consistently playing year in and year out at a top pace, at a top clip. So you guys, I'm sure it's got to be challenging in practice, right? I'm sure in order to play at a championship caliber level, you need to practice it, right? Is that something as the season rolls on, you continue to implement, or as the season rolls on, it's more about making sure everybody's kind of fine-tuned and sharp, and you build in the off season like that? Or how does that work, being the head coach of a top program year after year?
Sure. I think first of all, from the challenging aspect, and I'll just talk about the offense for now. I'm a hitting guy, so I can talk about pitching a little bit. Our pitching coach has done a fantastic job, as you just read our stat lines there. But our goal is to make our guys fail 50% of the time in the cage, 50% of the time in BP. So it's we are going to have those feel good days where we're working on cleaning up movement patterns and swings, and I think that's super important too. Guys have to believe in what they're doing, but once you get to that point, our goal is to have these guys fail in 50% of their swings. And it's really hard to get them to buy into that. Originally, we started implementing it. But now the adjustment process has actually become the win, rather than, hey, I felt really good and I hit, 10 barrels and 10 BP swings today. So, that's a big key for us. And we've kind of implemented it across the board. If we're doing square drill, which is, Tim Corbin's thing at Vanderbilt, we're trying to play that at a 3.5 second pace or 3.75 second pace and push our guys to fail. And we're not just hitting cookie cutter, pro workout style fungos at them, but putting them in game like situations from a defensive aspect. Pitching's tough. We implemented an app that we can look at command from a different lens. So I know a lot of guys track strikes, but we're tracking intended target, which again is going to put some pressure on guys to actually hit spots and execute pitches rather than just worried about throwing strikes, because you do want guys to be able to attack the zone, but you also to get those swing and misses with guys on third or less than 2 outs. You know, we need to have an idea how to pitch, and sometimes it's not throwing strikes. That, you know, approaching the zone is what Crane calls it, our pitching coach. Approaching the zone is a big key, and that's kind of going back to Maddox. You're either going to start the pitch on the plate and finish it off, or you're going to start it off the plate and finish it on. So
I love it. I love it. That's fantastic, man. So obviously anybody can see the success that you and your team and your teams have been able to pump out year after year. I wanted to talk a little bit about how you got into it, how it all started. Obviously, you know, you were a baseball player yourself, had some, you know, a taste of pro ball as well. How did you get into coaching after you were done playing?
Sure. So kind of let's say, you know, not the norm for guys that are in head coaching positions in college, but my dad worked at Millersville. I'll start with that. He worked at Millersville for 34 years, started in 1987, and he was in dining. So most people are like, oh, your dad coached here. No, he was in dining. So grew up the son of a chef, and you know, one thing my dad was always good at, and he ended up having 2 kids that signed professional contracts. So my brother was much better than me. I'll say that. He was a first-team All-American at Division I. A lot of, if you look at the stats back in 08, it was like Buster Posey and Chris Shehan. But I'm really proud of my brother and his career. But he got signed by the Braves. And anyway, he was part of one of our first coaching staffs. But let me back up there. So I went to Millersville, played 4 years, signed as a free agent with the Braves, caught a couple years. I was J.J. Piccolo's last signee before he went into the front office. He's now the GM with the Royals. So JJ, you know, believed in me and got me started. I don't think I'd be sitting here without him. But played a couple of years, ended up hanging him up on my own. I only got to A-ball. I wasn't a very good player at the professional level. I'll be the first one to admit it, but I learned a lot. And the program I came from at Millersville, I didn't have a great experience. And I think that's what motivates me every day to make sure that our guys have a great experience. And there's a lot of different levels to that. But when I came back to Millersville, I had some hip arthritis at an early age. I actually just got it replaced like 3 months ago, finally. But
Really?
Feeling good now, yeah. But that was one of the reasons I hung them up. And I came back. I had a graduate assistant position at Millersville in the athletic department, and also got to work under Jeffrey Swore. It's funny, now he's my son's high school coach. It's just weird how it works out. But we were on probation for 2 years because of the guy I played for. We didn't have a field on campus, so we were downtown playing in Lancaster City at a pretty rough facility, having to drive. And then because of the probation, we had $2,000 in scholarships, and we were not allowed to recruit off campus. So that would have been 06, 07. So Jeff Swore hired me there, and he decided to resign after a 9-37 year, which really wasn't Jeff's fault. But I mean, when you can't recruit and you have no money and you have no facility, you know, what can you expect other than going 9-37? So
that was 2007, right?
2007. So the summer of 07, our VP, because we had actually just gotten rid of our AD at that point because of the probation with the department. The VP walks into my office as a graduate assistant. He's like, "Hey, you're the interim head baseball coach. Good luck." And I'm like, I can't do any worse than 9-37. Like, I deserve to be fired if that's the case. But we actually had just come off probation. I think we had 15 kids that were enrolled for the fall, and a bunch of transfers. So we started off that first year. We were 6-20. The coaching staff was myself, Eric Suplee, who's now at San Francisco, but was at Columbia for a couple of years, won a bunch of Ivy League titles there as a pitching coach, and then Patrick Swift, who actually made some headway in the Division I softball area. Him and his wife were the head and associate head coach at NC State for the last couple of years. So
no way. Those
guys made some big jumps. But yeah, we were 25, 24, and 23 as a coaching staff, trying to coach guys that were, 22, 23.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting run. Both those guys hated me. I was a awful staff management guy, from the beginning. But we started off with 34 kids. We finished that year with 19 players.
Oh my gosh.
Ended up winning the PSAC East. I'm not really sure still to this day how it happened, other than the act of God that he wanted me to coach here for a long time.
Amen.
And yeah, the rest is kind of history. Suplee and Swift quit that summer, and 2 years later, we kind of reunited and talked over the summer. And now we're all three of us are really, really good friends. So that worked out in the end. But I'm appreciative of their patience with me learning as a new head coach. But that's how I've gotten here. And 17 seasons later, I'm still here.
That's absolutely incredible. Taking over, I mean, the reins, taking over. You're at the helm, a couple of years older than the kids, the young men that you're trying to lead and coach and tutor. Man, that's absolutely incredible.
Funny.
And then
I walked out of the house one day, and my wife's like, "What are you wearing?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm trying to look old. Like, I'm trying to separate myself." And now 17 years later, I'm like, how can I be a part of this generation? Like, I got to dress better. Like, I'm trying to, on the flip side, trying to have her help me figure out, how can I look younger? So it's funny how things change quickly, man, but they definitely do.
That's wild. So you took over a team in 2008, right? You took over, but in 2007, the team's 9-37, man. And since then, 578 and 264 has been the win-loss record. That's pretty solid. That's pretty solid, man.
I didn't know that, actually, but thanks for filling me in.
Yeah, I was trying to look it up a little bit, man. I did a double take when I saw it. Man. Like, that's absolutely incredible. Obviously, you've had success year after year. You've been building on that, and you've turned the program into a quote-unquote dynasty at the Division II level. That's not really a word that gets thrown around a lot. I think it's a good word to use right now, man. So 2016, you guys had an absolutely incredible season. PSAC record for wins in 53. You finished the year regular season 53-7, which is incredible. And then you guys fall to Nova Southeastern. I shouldn't say fall to Nova Southeastern. You get to play in the Division II championship. You guys end up the runner-up to Nova Southeastern. Man, what is that like? What's the whole environment like? What's the process like? You guys obviously romp through the competition. The PSAC, man. You guys get here. What is that like? What's the whole environment like, man? Is that like? Are you nervous or are you fired up? Like, what's going on?
I'm nervous for sure. I mean, I still get nervous about every game we play, whether it's midweek and it's 30 degrees or it's Westchester on a weekend to finish the year. It's always a nerve-wracking thing. But when I lose those butterflies, I think I'm going to hang them up. I think it's time to go into admin or retire. But
I love it.
Yeah. So that year was incredible. I mean, we literally everything went right. There was like one inning that went wrong. I'm telling you, the entire regular season. Where I think we won like 24 straight at one point, and then the wheels fell off, and I think we gave up like 15 runs in one inning at Westchester, and it was frustrating. But you're kind of like, okay, that ball bounced over the infielder's head, and we had a pitcher with a blister. It's just dumb stuff happened. But other than that, it was one of those dream seasons where everything was going right. Everybody stayed healthy. The lineup was incredible. The depth, like we were talking about, being dynamic. Our pitching staff was nearly unhittable for most of the year, and we had 3 arms that went to pro ball in our starting rotation of 4 guys, and then the 4th guy was a freshman who was like 10-1 and freshman of the year in the country. So I literally didn't have to work all season. That was the other nice side of it. It was basically like, all right, I'm going to cut my grass today, show up for practice, throw BP, and let these guys do their jobs because it was that easy. But I do remember going into the national championship thinking we had a chance to win it. Nova was a really good team. We made a couple key mistakes that we didn't make throughout the year, and it's baseball. I mean, we threw a bunt away. We lost 2-1 in the first game, and then I think it was 9-7 in the second game, and made a couple defensive plays that cost us. And that's baseball. I mean, I look at the playoffs and think, okay, the measure of success every year is just going to be the consistency in and out. I think it's obviously less than playing 160 or 140 games at the professional level. But, if you can be good over a 50-game season, that's really all that you can control, because once you get to the postseason, man, bounces happen, calls happen, lineouts happen. It's just part of the game. And it's not an excuse, but I've also learned that you got to take a lot of risks in the postseason and run that double squeeze, or, just do those things that you might not do during the year, because if you don't take a risk, you're probably not going to win those games, and you're going to be asking yourself, what if, like we still are about 2016, to be honest. So we haven't won the big one. I appreciate you saying Dynasty, but we've been very consistent, but we just haven't been able to figure out how to win that big one yet, and we're going to continue to chase it.
I love it, man. I love it. See, I mean, I'm not going to jinx it. You guys are looking really good this year, man. So we talked a little bit about the hot start. What goes into that, what the preparation's like, how the challenging, environment of practice breeds, championship caliber results and play on the field, right? That process there. Talked about the journey, how you got to where you're at, the journey into, making Millersville a respectable, solid program year after year. I wanted to hit on some things behind the scenes, man. So obviously, everybody sees the success. Everybody can see, hey, man, head coaching, this might go into it, right? Being a coach, this goes into it, man. But stuff behind the scenes, stuff that players and parents might not see before they even get to the NCAA level, man. I wanted to talk a little bit about the transfer portal.
Sure.
So back in the old days, right? How we got acclimated with each other. So I grew up in Pennsylvania. I got to play in front of you at a showcase, stole some bags, ended up committing to go to Millersville.
Just a few bags.
Just a few bags.
15 bags in one showcase, actually.
So I made the commitment to go to Millersville last second, man. I'm like, you know what? I want to take a chance. There was a stipulation in my mind, as there is right now with baseball players before they even get to college, where it was like, dude, I need to be a Division I baseball player. Have to do it. So I decommitted the process. I left, got out of there, went to Wagner. I got extremely lucky being able to play my freshman year. Did not have a solid season by any means, but I did not miss a year of development. I wanted to touch on it. It's a little different now with the transfer portal. There are some rules and things that go on behind the scenes where it's like guys can transfer for free now. What is that stipulation like, development wise? If you want to further your career, is it about playing? Is it about getting better? It's not necessarily about the D1 title. It's not necessarily about being able to dress in, full Rawlings, like Division I gear, right? That's what I was after. I wanted the cool gear. I wanted to say,
sure,
hey man, I was a Division I baseball player. I got lucky being able to develop and get reps on the field, right? What can you say to that stipulation between Division I and Division II?
I think my brother was a lot like you, or he went to Georgia Southern. It worked out. A couple guys got hurt. He got to play right away as a freshman, and it really helped him develop long term. And you get to play 45, 50 games as a freshman. That's definitely going to aid in your development. So, especially like you said, you fail, you have, the failure is a key part of it. I mean, that's most of the guys that come into college, no matter what level it is, it may be their first time learning how to fail. So, but you're never going to fail if you're not on the field, and you're not going to develop from that failure. So I think it is crucial. But even at our level, one of the things that I tell every single guy that comes in this office is there's no guarantees. Like, we're not ever going to guarantee playing time. And I think that, there are a lot of coaches that want to hear a yes. So, the expectation and reality don't necessarily meet. And that's why kids transfer, right? I mean, you could fill those expectations and reality with anything you want: facilities, gear, development, playing time. How the coach coaches in his personality may not be, what was put forth in the recruiting process. So you got to do your homework as a player and as a parent, going in the recruiting process. But I think one of the things I am most proud about is we've had very few guys go into the portal. And, that's a big key for our success is trying to make sure that we're filling each and every one of those buckets of development, whether it's, that holistic develop young men off the field from a leadership aspect, from an education aspect, and then on the field with, your strength and conditioning, your speed work, and your athletic training, and your nutrition, and obviously your movement, on the field from a mechanical aspect, and then the player development side that has been overlooked more and more, which is playing the game, right? But if you're filling those buckets and, you make it risky for a kid to leave, it's, because they're not really sure if they're going to be able to fill those buckets elsewhere. That's the key. I think relationships keeps them here too. But the portal it's changed a lot. I think it's helped us in certain circumstances from a development side of things. If you look at our rosters over the past 10 years, they've been primarily made up of high school players. And I think there are high school players because of the portal that are getting overlooked. The talent level that you're able to grab out of the high school, recruiting process has gotten better, in my opinion. There's a lot of guys that are just leftovers, and baseball's such a weird sport, man. It's like Timmy Meza, same class as you, right? Timmy was an 84, 85 lefty, good body, point guard in high school, really athletic, right? And he just developed at a different pace. I mean, I think that's the key is trying to find those high school guys that are going to develop a little bit late. And then, we've traditionally been in between the commitments at Power Fives and then the rest of our league in Division II. And it's been a really good intermediate time to grab guys and kind of be done with our class typically at the end of the summer, but a little bit later than those Power Fives and a little bit earlier than the rest of the group. And that's been our niche. But the portal has also helped us in terms of grabbing a couple guys. We've already mentioned we had a super veteran pitching staff coming back off a World Series team last year. And I know because of our style of recruiting, we don't always have the depth and the veteran arms. So it's like, all right, we got a chance to win this year. What holes do we need to fill? So we go in the portal and we grab a couple guys, and we've had some big impacts from Mark McNally from Seton Hall playing a fifth year. He's also, it's rare when you get a transfer in that also becomes almost immediate leader, and he's done that. So he's certainly helped with the strikeout to walk ratio that you mentioned earlier. He's been really good there, but we also gone the JUCO route, which we typically don't do, and kid you would love when we start talking about 9-hole stuff. Jeff Sabater has been playing in the 9-hole, but we just moved in the leadoff spot this past weekend. But he's left an immediate impact, out of the gate. So I think has it been good for baseball? I don't know if it's been good, but it's just something that we know we got to work around and adjust to. And,
For sure.
and so far it's been okay.
Improvise, adapt, and overcome. And I
Sure.
definitely wanted to hit on that portal there because that's something that is obviously becoming more and more prevalent in today's game. I wanted to just hit on that because I wanted to convey to the high school audience and their parents, the student athletes that are not yet on college campuses yet or going through the recruiting process, that hey, the transfer portal is going to make spots even more difficult to grab. So if you are talking to, Coach Shehan here at Millersville and you want to commit, I mean, there might be a guy that is coming from a D1 program that is looking to win or is looking for an opportunity, right? That may be a good fit. Maybe that fifth-year guy coming from Seton Hall, whatever it is, might be able to help your team win. That's added competition to the high school kid. So I wanted to just hit on that, man. That's obviously huge. If it's about winning, it's going to make it even more tough to get a spot at a top tier program like yourself. I'm glad we hit on that, man. You have 10 MLB draft picks under your belt so far, man. 2 right now are in the big leagues. McCormick and Meza, you hit on that a little bit, man. What is that process like? So in my experience, when I was at Wagner, I got seen in summer ball. I went to Alaska. I stole a couple bags there, man. I got seen from those West Coast guys, whereas out here on the East Coast, it was like, okay, I had some questions with the bat. I kind of got that profile where it's like, okay, he doesn't put the ball out of the infield. He's just quick and he runs. I went out there and I was able to get the ball out of the infield a little bit, play some defense, show off the arm, show off the, defensive capabilities, I guess you could say. That ended up giving me a chance, getting me seen. In the winter, before, the spring kind of opened up, is when I started having, some meetings and some sit downs with scouts and teams. Right. They would come to campus. They would kind of talk to me a little bit. I think my coach was pretty instrumental in that process, getting that set up. Having 10 MLB draft picks under your tutelage that you've coached and having 2 in the big leagues right now from Millersville, like what has that process been like, man? Like what goes on behind the scenes in getting that orchestrated?
Sure. I think honesty and integrity from a coaching staff first and foremost is big. I mean, we want our kids to get picked here, and I know a lot of times at Division I they get to there's a reputation of we're going to hide this guy or we don't want scouts coming in at certain schools, and you hear these rumblings from scouts, but I think it only helps our program in Division II. I mean, we've got two phenomenal ambassadors right now in the big leagues. They're not just, former players that are in the big leagues, but those guys care about our kids on the field. And I think there's a little bit more weight and responsibility when you're coming from a small school, as you know, to give back, not just financially, but to be around and to talk to the players and provide some wisdom. And it also keeps our players dreaming, right? I mean, you can see guys from our school that are playing in the big leagues, making money, playing in the World Series, making big catches down the street in Philadelphia.
It's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's half the battle is, I read a book called The Talent Code years ago. And I think, talking about a little league in Curacao and how Andrew Jones is around, like that's kind of on a lower level, what we have here where our players still believe. And I think it does keep them out of the portal. Like, hey, 25 scouts show up at scout day. I still have a shot. If guys don't want to play professional baseball, don't come here. I mean, you should dream to play professional baseball if you want to play at Millersville. And that's what we tell every kid. And is it possible? It is possible. Is it likely? No. You still got to get an education. Timmy's got a master's degree. It's one of those things that we still got to check all the boxes, but the dream is alive. The scouts in the area do a fantastic job. Like I said, we had over 20 teams at our scout day again this fall. We were off campus. We were putting lights in. So we were actually off campus and we still had a great turnout. So I appreciate those guys. A lot of them I talk to daily, weekly. And we've kind of built a relationship of trust with the veteran guys in the area where I'm not going to tell them to come in and see a guy unless they have a legitimate reason to come in and see him. So it's only gotten tougher though. 20 rounds, man. It's I sound biased because I am, but I just know there's kids like McCormick out there that may not get a shot as a result of this. And it's the beauty of baseball. It's a democratic, American dream minor league system. And I know there's so much going on there from a unionization and, there's a lot more levels than, just the D2 coach getting pissed off about his kids not getting picked. But I really do believe, though, that there are good major league players that are going to be missed, and the organizations that can exploit that and find the McCormicks in the post draft are really gonna find some quality players. So that's
Love it.
That's my spiel there. 20 rounds has just become so hard.
It's mind blowing. It's mind blowing. So it was like 50 rounds, I think, right before I was going to get drafted, and then it was 40 rounds, I think, and now it's 20. I mean, in the COVID year, I think it was 5 or 10, man, and then it's crazy, right. And it's
as good as development's got, right? I mean, players are developing at a faster pace, and organizations are better about it. But at the same time, you're still in an inexact business. There's going to be guys that just blow up out of nowhere, and the free agent signings are great, but it's just tough to. It's always been tough to get credibility for a Division II hitter, but it's even harder now.
For sure. No, that makes a ton of sense. So I wanted to touch on what you had just talked about a little bit on, the pro day. It wasn't on field because you guys were putting in lights. Obviously, with continued success may come continued opportunities, further opportunities. I saw something on your social media, I think the past couple of weeks, where you might have had some plans in place for, future renovations or a future, upgrade to the stadium. I wanted to, we were just talking about the D1, D2 stipulation where, those guys get insane gear, better gear than Division II guys.
Right.
But it's like you're decked out in Under Armour stuff. You guys have top-notch equipment. You guys have top-notch facilities. Like, are you planning on upgrading further the stadium and the amenities?
For sure. I mean, so quick story. My high school coach, name is Todd Garber. His brother's been in pro ball for, 30 years with different organizations as a field coordinator and infield coordinator. Anyway, Garbs is pretty progressive in terms of field development, vision, dreaming, and when I started playing high school at Lampeter Strasburg, we had a backstop and 2 dugouts and a snow fence. And when I left, we had this beautiful press box, all brick, new cages, new fence. My brother gets done playing 5 years later. They've got lights up and my dad was part of the boosters, and Garb would walk into a booster meeting with a notebook and it'd be like, I want to do this, 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 and this. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to find a way. So I kind of adopted that when we got here. I originally made a sketch, and I'm like, we want to put a turf halo from first base all the way to third. Well, that ended up being a full infield. And then, we want to put in cages. And I think when we were recruiting you, we had one cage out in right field. We turned that into extra space for pitching development, plow wall, that stuff now. And then we put a couple cages in. And the dream was always lights. But I thought that was going to be a 15 to 20 year plan. And we put a clubhouse into a legitimate house behind the backstop. Like it was an empty house owned by the university. So we turned it into a clubhouse. So it's definitely different. But it works, and it's something that most of our conference doesn't have. So we're just looking for advantages. I've latched on to Justin Herrick Campbell. We've become friends, and Justin kind of shares that similar vision. They put the weight room together for the kids in the trailer, right? And we got the lights in this year. We still haven't turned them on yet because we got a transformer that's on back order. But it's always a challenge, right?
That's right.
But I talked to Justin this winter. I said, man, like, we kind of checked off everything on my list. And he's like, no, dude, there's more you can do. He said, put a list of things together and just rank them from $5,000 to $500,000 a dream, and that's what we did. And that was the new sketch I put out on Twitter, which kind of made a big splash, or, got a lot of likes or whatever. And I just learned that if you put your vision out there and you actually believe in it, there are people who will join with you. And the light process, it was a lot of money, but we had a state senator who's an alum that saw the vision and liked it, thought it was good for the community, and helped us out with a major grant. So you just never know where the money's going to come from. But if you don't put the vision out there, you're never going to get there. So
I love that. I love that. Being able to paint that vision, that's huge. That obviously leads to success on the field as well, success in the clubhouse, the culture that you are breeding, being able to lead your young men and kind of paint that vision that they're trying to go accomplish, man, day in and day out. That obviously leads to 16, 17 years of success, man. So I am appreciative of your time, grateful for all of the, the tidbits, the information, the looks into, what it's like to be part of a top 10 program consistently, man. I wanted to ask you a couple questions regarding like some advice to the next generation, to those student athletes that maybe aren't out of the high school ranks yet. Maybe they're about to go into high school. Maybe they haven't entered the portal process yet, whatever that is, but also tie their parents into it, right? The decision makers, those who have immediate influence on those young players, those student athletes and their careers, their journeys. What don't they know as a whole yet about the whole process, how the recruiting process works? What are some things that maybe the parents and the student athletes can take away, maybe get in front of to help smooth that process over, give them the best chance to succeed throughout this whole process, man? Can you hit on some of that stuff?
Yeah, I want to talk about the education side first. I think there's less and less kids going to college these days, and I think that higher ed is in a little bit of a troubled time period here, and higher ed needs to adjust. I mean, we need to adjust to the consumer, and I won't go down that rabbit hole. My president probably doesn't want me to go down that rabbit hole if he listens to this podcast, but I think it's really important that when a player and parents are looking at a program, they find a program that's educational for them, not just in the classroom, but find a place that's going to holistically develop them as a young man. Because as we know, there's very few guys that are going to make it to the big leagues or end up in coaching. The education should mean something. Are there internship opportunities? Do you have alumni that own businesses that are willing to take you in and mentor you? Those are big pieces of it, and we're a state school education. It's from a cost aspect, it's economical for families. But I think one of the things that has really bumped up the ability for our guys to do well post college is those resources that may be overlooked a little bit. And I think those are, if you're looking into the recruiting process, those are the questions you need to be asking when you go into that meeting with the coach. Is, okay, here's your baseball process, but how are you going to help my kid be successful post graduation? When you're looking at the process itself, I'll sell camps, not just our camps, but I think it's really important once you get into a recruiting window for a school. And for us, that would be like after the kid's sophomore year, late summer, when we finally finish up with that junior class. Once we switch over this year, it'll be the 26s where we'll be starting in August or so. And we have a follow list of 26s, but when we actually really start getting into evaluating those 26s and putting our list together, right? That's when guys need to be getting to camps. That's when guys need to be getting there and exposed to the actual coaching staffs that they're interested in playing for. And hopefully those staffs do a good job at whatever camps they do. If they don't run a good camp, don't go to that school. But if they run a good camp, hopefully they'll get back to you and provide some type of evaluation. Like, you can play here, you may be able to play here, you can't play here. And I think that's really important to hear for kids and just get an idea of where they fit or where a coach thinks they fit. I'm sure that you could have probably played at a lot of ACC schools, but you go to an ACC camp and they might not see that. So we had a kid, quick story, your time period, went to a school in our conference, their camp, and played for Mike Manning at All-Star Baseball Academy. You might know him. His name was Zach Stone.
Yeah.
Zach, yes. So Stone goes to one of the camps. I won't mention the school or the coach, but he gets an email back at, you're a mid-level Division III player. And that email hung in his locker for 4 years at Millersville.
I love
and
that.
He hit like 800 against that school, and he was a 2-time All-American, broke our hits record, broke our RBI record. I thought he should have played professional baseball. He did turn down one opportunity with the Cubs, and it's just a great story. But as a coach, you just learn to never write kids off too. I mean, you just never know. Like, at this time, you're not ready, but here are the things that you need to do to improve rather than labeling a guy.
I love it.
Yeah, so that's the camp process. Definitely do it. I think there's a lot of money that can be spent on showcases and events, but at the end of the day, at least for our program, we try to put that list together late summer, fall, winter, and then early spring, and then try to go out and see as many high school games as possible. We take kids from all walks of life, man. And we've signed some of our best players out of men's leagues, and we've found guys in showcases. We've done the WWBA thing, and we've gone down and seen guys there. I think it's really important for us to diversify, where we're looking, but generally within 2 hours of here, Ian, like, a lot of really good baseball players. So with our budget, we just try to do our best and not miss guys in that 2-hour radius of our school. And that seems to work well for our staff. So if you're outside of that area, you got to come to us, really.
I love it.
Yeah. So
I love that, man.
good question.
You don't want to miss, right? Obviously, the target audience, the target area is home cooking right there. You got a whole bunch of great baseball players in a 2-hour radius of Millersville. You don't want to miss them, right? So how, in this recruiting process, how would a student athlete stand out? How would they be able to not be missed by you? Is that maybe like a certain way that they play? Could they go about the process a certain way? Like, how could they stand out from everybody else? Obviously, like, the tools, right, get you where you're going. But if everybody has the same opportunity and same chances aside from the tools, like, how could maybe the parents, the coaches, or the student athletes play on that to give them the best chance of getting seen, not being missed?
Sure. We want relentless players, not relentless parents. I can tell you that much. We've gotten emails from, one particular parent. He just never goes away. And we've already told him, like, your kid can't play here, right? But, we try to get back to every single guy that emails us. And I'm sure I've missed some. I'll put that out there. But at the end of the day, we try to get back to every single guy. And, the video certainly helps, but we want consistency with those emails too. Like, hey, coach, it could be a 2-liner, 1 3 for 4 today. Here's a little clip. That helps for sure. Thanks for the update. Hoping to see you soon, that kind of thing. But from on the field aspect, man, we want guys that are going to bust their tails. Similar to you. I mean, you stood out at a showcase because you literally stole 15 bags in one showcase. You were able to show that tool off. And, we want competitors, right? I want a guy that wants to go out and beat you in ping pong, beat you in Monopoly, beat you in pickup basketball, be the first guy in the weight room just to win. Those are the type of kids that you want in the program that are going to turn into winners on the baseball field. And, guys that shy away from competition are they may be hard workers, but there's a big difference. Chazzy was I wouldn't say he was the hardest worker. He did his work, but he was super competitive. So I think once he got to pro ball, where he got challenged a lot more, he had to work harder. Puts 20 pounds of muscle on. He changes his swing and he develops. Why? Because he wants to win, and he wants to compete and be great. So, there's definitely a line there where I think the competition will lead to hard work, but hard workers in general don't do it for me. So we got to find guys that want to win for
I
sure.
love that. I love that. That trait, those traits right there, right? Obviously, you have talent. Everybody's going to work hard, but being a competitor, wanting to win, having that edge, man, that's big time. I saw something, the having the ability or the tools is one thing, but like having all that stuff, you can have a picture perfect swing or a picture perfect delivery, right? But if you're not the type of dude that controls the zone or, wants to win, I mean, there's so much that goes into it. It's like the skill is almost not as important as the trait, because if you have those traits, if you are that type of dude, that type of player, you will eventually learn that stuff,
For
right?
sure.
I that's fantastic. I'm so fired up that you hit on that. Uh, I've actually been meaning to like say something like that. I just didn't really know how to verbalize it. So that fires me up right there, man. I love all of that. That's insane advice right there. Great insight to the next generation and their parents, maybe their coaching staff. You want relentless players, not relentless parents. So I'm sure that's going to maybe not only cloud the judgment, it's going to make it a little bit more difficult in the recruiting process. It's going to be even difficult if that parent is relentless trying to get his or her son on campus for you, right? To play under you, under your guidance, under your tutelage. And then when does that stop? Right? They got 4
For sure.
years, maybe even 3, depending on, what it looks like. And it's like, man, are you going to be continuously getting just heckled by the parent? Like, you don't want
Right.
that, man. So I get it.
Every coach is so different too in how they handle parents, and I think it's super intriguing. I mean, you got Pat Murphy down at Alabama softball, and just a phenomenal relationships guy, and he involves the parents in everything that he does. And then rumor is like Tim Corbin will go out and not talk to parents, but he's a fatherly figure,
Mm,
and it's funny how both work. So I think you got to be authentic in how you handle those relationships, both in the recruiting process and when the player gets there. I talk to parents, but I just don't want to talk to parents about playing time. And but parents can be a huge resource in just getting to know the kid and figuring out what makes them tick and why they are the way they are,
for
right?
sure.
So I think there, anything that we could use to help coach the player and better them as men, better them as players is significant, and we should use it. So, but parents definitely don't have any influence over the recruiting process. Well, they can influence it negatively,
Mm.
but or playing time or the development process and what we do every day between the lines. So that's definitely a line for me, even though I'm willing to have conversations with parents.
For sure. Man, it makes a ton of sense. Last question I got for you, Coach. I'm insanely grateful for your time again, man. Thank you for
Thanks for
all of
having me
this.
on.
Of course, this is obviously the 9 Hole Podcast, where we give, insight, provide inspiration, give unique, yeah, just unique insight, unique info to the next generation off of what we've experienced, what we've done. Man, when you think of a 9 hole hitter, we talked about it a little bit, who you guys now have in the leadoff spot, but he's been in the 9 hole, man. What is a good 9 hole hitter in your mind, in your lineup? What kind of traits, characteristics, like what should that 9 hole hitter be able to do?
We call this guy PETA, pain in the, you know what I mean? Like you've got to be a complete pain in the rear end. Turn the lineup over, embrace hitting in the 9 hole. We had a kid here named Tyler Wright who did a phenomenal job in the 9 hole. It was all conference. Yeah, he hit 340, but he got every bunt down. He moved every runner over. He hit a sac fly when needed. He drag a bunt when somebody wasn't paying attention. You get a 2-out, third base is playing back with a man on third. And he's like, you don't even need to put it on. He gets it done. So we're looking for savvy guys. Sabater right now, he is PETA. Like he's just a total pain in the rear end. He's a pitching coach's worst nightmare where, you get to the 9 hole and you're like, dude, I got to face this 5'8" lefty that runs a 6'3" that handles the bat. And he's going to turn the lineup over. And then I got to have to deal with, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 after him. I love that position. It's not an out. It can never be an out. And they've got to be productive, even though they may not be seen by everybody or, given enough credit. One of the reasons we've been successful the last 4 or 5 years has been the guy in the 9 hole. And it's been Tyler. And now for the first half of the season, it's been Jeff. So I love that you call it the 9 hole, the humility that goes with it, the competitive that goes with it, usually team guys and, good defenders typically, so it's like I said, take some humility and selflessness to do it well. But it's definitely one of those positions in the lineup that can be the difference between winning and losing.
Love it. I love it, man. That makes a ton of sense. Man, I am so grateful again for your time. Coach Shehan, the head coach of the Millersville Marauders, just Dynasty. I'll say it. Dynasty. Coach,
Thanks.
thank you so much for letting me run you through the gauntlet of the questions here, man. Thank you for providing the insight, the info to the next generation, man. And I'm wishing you guys continued success. Looking forward to seeing, what this season and further looks like for you guys. Thank you again for your time.
Ian, it was so good catching up after all these years. I've been watching your career for a long time, and it's awesome to see what you're doing to grow the game now, and I really appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. Pleasure's all mine. Thank you guys, everybody, for tuning in. We will catch you guys back here again later this week. Take care, guys. Thank you, Coach.